This video is an average user's experience review of the Swan D100 speakers. I'm going to talk through the design, the setup, the sound quality, and what makes these speakers punch so much higher than their weight class. So Swan reached out to me and provided the product for review, but integrity and transparency are super important to me. You're only ever getting my honest thoughts here and on every video I make. And again, this is more of an average user's experience review, not a technical deep dive. If you're interested in that, I've left links down below the like button. With that out of the way, let's talk about these impressive speakers. The first thing I noticed when taking these out of the box was the pristine build quality. The cherry wood veneer cabinet and soft matte black front is striking and unique. This is also the first speaker that I've encountered that has a speaker grill built into the front. There's no removable panel. There's also this cool line pattern that runs down the front of the speaker, which makes the whole thing look sharp. To be honest, I think the design of the front is awesome, but it kind of has me wishing that the whole speaker was covered in that material. I'm really not a fan of the cherry wood color. That's just personal preference though, it may genuinely appeal to you. It's also super angry looking. The angled front face and built-in grille just make it look kind of aggressive. For some, this may be super cool, but I kind of prefer a little bit more laid back of a design. The D100s are also very compact, coming in around the same size as the popular Mika PB42X speakers. They're a little bit shorter, but also a little bit wider. They're nowhere near the mid-size speakers like the Klipsch R51 PMs or these Pioneer speakers. Their smaller size means the soundstage and sound quality won't reach the levels of those other speakers, but here's the thing. Get surprisingly close. In fact, the huge sound that these things can output is genuinely shocking, but more on that in a little bit. The right side of the right speaker has tuning knobs, and I love that they're on the side and not on the back, which makes accessing them really convenient if you end up stationing them on your desk. Which, by the way, I think that's the best place for these to go. Swan builds these as near-field speakers, and I think they're right. While they can absolutely fill a small room with sound, you get to enjoy the detail the most when you're sitting a bit closer to them. Real quick, I want to go over what's in the box. You're getting a handful of accessories, including an RCA cable, digital optical cable, speaker connection cable, and a remote, which is great for when you're listening wirelessly. I also love the fact that the glowing light on the front can be toggled off. It's a nice touch and shows that the people making the speaker actually use it, because no one wants a glowing white light when they're enjoying entertainment in the dark. Unlike some other speakers, these also have little sound isolation feet, which should cut down on resonance when placed on a flat surface. They are removable, but I'd still recommend getting speaker stands or vibration pads if you're using it at louder volumes. It's a nice touch to include, but either way, I'll leave links to some down below. Now, these are what's known as active, also known as powered speakers, and I've explained the difference between active and passive in many of my other videos, but in short, it means that there's a built-in amp, so you don't need any extra audio equipment in order to use it. It just works right out of the box, it's plug and play. This means you can hook it up to a record player, a TV, a computer, or your phone with ease just using the cords that come in the box. You have a few options for how to hook these up. Depending on your sound source, one of these included cables should work. Though I do find it a little strange that there's no USB hookup option here. It's designed to work on a desk. I think that would be one of the options. Speaking of, yes, I did mention earlier how these work best for desktop setups, but that does not mean that they won't work for vinyl or TV setups. If you have a smaller living room or apartment, these will work great for that too. Just don't expect it to fill like an entire open floor plan living room or a huge house. One small complaint about using it for the TV, the cable that links the two speakers together isn't super long. So if you've got like a large TV and the speakers are going to be far apart, you may have a difficult time setting it up and hiding the cables, or you're just going to need to get a longer one. Now, the last connection option is Bluetooth, and that's fairly straightforward. You're just gonna hold down the BT button on the remote until the light starts blinking, and then pair it with your device. You're obviously losing a little bit of sound quality if you use Bluetooth over hardwire, but they still sound pretty excellent, which brings us to their main purpose. Top line, these speakers produce massive sound despite their compact size, and not only that, the sound quality is pretty great too. For me, the balancing of these speakers is what stands out the most. They're not too bass heavy, they're super clear, and there's great spatial separation with loud volume capacity. For running tests, I listen to a variety of music, including rock, hip hop, jazz, and EDM, and it crushes almost all of these. The clarity is on par with something like the Mika PB42X speakers. In my opinion, vocals and instrumentals cut through extremely well. The instrumental separation is very noticeable too, thanks to the isodynamic tweeter. It literally sounds like you can hear the instruments coming from different places in the room. In general, the mids and highs were the most impressive to me, but the bass is also superb, especially for the size. Real quick, I want to go back to these tuning knobs. This is something you won't find on a lot of other speakers in this price range, save for the Edifier R1280DBs. I've actually made a video about those speakers. You can check it out linked below the like button or up in the corner here. The tuning knobs work thanks to the built-in DSP. That means you just get finer control over the sound signature. If you want to crank the bass up, for example, you can do that. However, I will say that there's a ceiling to that, as low end is limited by the sheer size of the woofer, and this 4-inch driver, unfortunately, can only produce sound to a certain point. It's still punchy and it definitely does the job, but the inability to expand with a subwoofer means you're just kind of limited if you like your music to have that like crunch or that rumble. I feel I have to emphasize just how impressive this all is for speakers that are only $200 and are this small. It's just absurd. Now, I've only covered my experience using these so far, but if you want a more technical deep dive on the product, Zio over at Z Reviews has an amazing in-depth look at the tech behind these speakers and what makes them so great. Typically, I've looked at how other speakers I use perform for listening to vinyl, but I love how these things work so well for such a variety of use cases. And $200 occupies like a great price range when competitors are like $100, $150, or like $350 plus. So for only $50 more than some of the closest competition, you're getting a lot of bang for buck. And in my opinion, this combines the best of both the Edifier R1280DBs and the Mika PB42X speakers for only a little bit more cash. And if more bass is what you're after, Swan does make bigger speakers like the D200 and D300, which just provide bigger sound and more features. If you want to learn more about some of those other amazing and comparable speakers or some more budget options, check out the video on the screen now where I go over the top 3 speakers I've tried for listening to vinyl records. Otherwise, please like the video if you found it helpful, and subscribe if you're keen to see more like this one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Cut. That was the take.